it's time to resurrect the bad movie talk, and today we're going to talk about Scarecrow Gone Wild. Now this movie is the third in the Scarecrow trilogy, which started with Scarecrow, went on to Scarecrow Slayer, which we all know had the wonderful CGI effects, and has finally culminated in the evanescent Scarecrow Gone Wild, which is a pun on the Girls Gone Wild series. Now this fantastic film stars none other than Ken Shamrock of UFC and WWF. And he plays the character Coach Ramsey, and we never really find out what he's the coach of. But let's talk about highlights of Scarecrow Gone Wild. The plot doesn't really matter because it's some good-looking kids, fraternity, an initiation ritual that goes wrong, and so they go into a cornfield with the pledges, and they put a guy up on a cross with a scarecrow who has no hay or anything on him whatsoever, but instead wears a rubber mask that ends awkwardly mid-chest, and and some kind of bodysuit, and that's what passes for scarecrows these days. And they hang him there, and many hours pass, and I guess the longer you stay there, the more your soul merges with the scarecrow, because nothing really happens to denote that, like, you know, there's no real legend or anything going on. It's just suddenly the scarecrow's gone and he's hurt. So then the scarecrow goes and starts killing people. And here's some of the interesting things about the scarecrow. He has a mouth that is stitched shut, yet he can whistle, and he can also swim because he gets people underwater. So and then he can also whistle while he's underwater. That's important. But also there's a scene where a guy is buried in the ground, and the fraternity members, to play a prank on him, they urinate on his face, which is disturbing, but the thing is they never lower their swim trunks to do so, and that's a really kind of disturbing point. But let's move on to the really important thing in the movie, and that's Ken Shamrock. See, Ken Shamrock is the voice of reason in the movie. He is the coach, and he says that you guys shouldn't be hazing people, but they do anyways, and he does this several times. And that's one of the choices he makes as an actor. And Ken Shamrock, they call one of the pledges call him and say, "Come help us, we're in the cornfield." Now Ken Shamrock automatically knows which cornfield and where, and also he at one point because the cool kids go to the beach, and that's where they're hanging out. So apparently beaches and cornfields exist like 5 minutes from each other, and Ken Shamrock not only knows where to find them in the cornfield, but then he finds the cool kids later on the beach, and he tells them the story that really is kind of inconsequential, that he's encountered the scarecrow before apparently, and then suddenly the scarecrow comes and he has to fight it. And there's no Ken Shamrock ankle lock, sorry to say. All it is a few awkward punches that are very badly choreographed, and then the scarecrow starts choking him, and then it cuts away, and the next time you see the scarecrow, he's driving Ken Shamrock's car, because scarecrows can drive too. And then so you think Ken Shamrock's dead, but then of course in the happy afterlude, they see Ken Shamrock, and he's wearing an arm cast. Because when you get choked, your arm gets hurt. and they go, "How did you get away from the scarecrow, Ken Shamrock?" And he says something about bobbling the ball in relation to fighting a scarecrow. And then he's apparently got a new job coaching. You never find out what sport he coaches, which is wonderful. So he gets a new job coaching, and then it's one of those where the movie's not over yet, and then actually Ken Shamrock does get killed, and his part in the movie is pretty bad. But my favorite thing of the whole movie, my favorite part of Scarecrow Gone Wild, was what I call the awkward Ken Shamrock hug. And this is he obviously didn't want to touch his fellow cast members, and one of the really nerdy kids in the cast wanted at one point to give him a hug. So when the kid goes to give him the hug, Ken Shamrock gives one back, and it's pretty much along these lines, which is complete brilliance. So I call it the awkward Ken Shamrock hug. And so I highly recommend Scarecrow Gone Wild, because it's also filled with illuminating musical numbers by a cute guy with an acoustic guitar who's obviously not playing or singing, and then he gets impaled with a volleyball net stake, and it's very wonderful. So I have to say that that movie, Scarecrow Gone Wild, culminates the trilogy and just makes it bleed with awesomeness. No pun intended.
While we're on the subject of bad movies, I got one for you guys. Private Resort, starring a very young Johnny Depp. I believe it was his second film after the critically acclaimed Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1. So anyway, let's get rolling. How did I come across first seeing this movie? Let's take a walk. I was at my grandparents' house last Christmas, and my grandfather says, "Hey Tim, I got a movie for you." And I said, "Oh really? Wow, what is it?" And he says, "It's this little thing I like to call Private Resort." And I say, "Really? Is it any good?" And he says, "Of course it's good. It has tits. Therefore, that makes it good." So he puts it in. Opening scene is a chase number. You know, what better way to start a bad action movie or a bad comedy than with a chase? Johnny Depp and his crony, I forgot the fine actor's name who played Rob Morrow?
Yes.
Okay, Rob Morrow. They're being chased because, see, I believe they steal a diamond from the ever-popular Hector Elizondo, who in this movie is playing the same one-dimensional character that he's also played in such classics as Necessary Roughness and Princess Diaries Part 2 and
Breakfast Club.
No,
Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Yes.
Well, anyway, he's chasing them. And, you know, I'll fast forward here, but in the chase, they run past a group of girls, okay? And you don't need to do this, but as Johnny Depp runs past the girls, he unties one of the tops of their bathing suit, and oops, it all falls out for no reason other than because the director wanted to get aroused. You know, it's like, I love directors who think like, hey, I'm like the guy on this movie, I can do whatever I want. If I want this actress to show her tits, she'll do it because I'm the director. I love those guys. So anyway, moving on to the rest of this movie and how brilliant it was. A lot of classic scenes. The ever-popular Rob Morrow is boning Hector Elizondo's wife, and in the process, you can imagine Hector Elizondo comes into the room, and Rob Morrow and Johnny Depp have to escape naked without being seen by their killer.
So they were having a three-way?
I'm very vague. I wasn't really paying attention to the movie. Well, anyway, fast forward to the end. I don't remember what happened. It was an awkward hour and a half, let me tell you. I personally, you know, the reason we do these bad movies is so that, because we want you, the viewers, to go home to your local video stores. Family Video here in, what's the name of the city? Carbondale, Illinois was nice enough to let us film here. See, we want you guys to go out to your film store, your video stores, and rent these movies. Don't rent Private Resort. It's a bad movie. You won't enjoy it, okay? Unless you like the occasional 80s, you know, the occasional 80s spillover, as I like to call them. Just, it's bad. You know, don't waste your time. And I really don't know how to end this. Just, even huge fans of Depp, don't waste your time. You know, I mean, I love Hector Elizondo. I mean, yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, I've had enough.